Morning, everyone. Welcome. Looks like the fog's going to burn off and be another beautiful day that we can all enjoy. My name's Jake, and I'll be leading the service today. Well, if you haven't understood it yet, the topic today is stilling the mind. Eknath Easwaran said, "A mind that is fast is unhealthy. A mind that is peaceful is sound. And a mind that is still is divine." I'm sure we've all tried over the years to try to stop our thoughts, or at least slow them down. And it's very difficult because I know I end up thinking about, I got to stop thinking. And that's all I can think about is I got to stop thinking. And it's not an easy task to still the mind. But luckily there are some tools that can help that we'll get into. I want to do a little history lesson a little bit. Sunburst was founded by Norm Paulson, who was a disciple of Yogananda. He went to live at Yogananda's Mount Washington when he was a very young man, and learned how to do Kriya Yoga and helped build several of the buildings and worked on Lake Shrine, tried to keep the boat from sinking at Lake Shrine. That's another story. But after he had been there a year or so, this other gentleman showed up. His name was Donald Walters, and he ended up taking the vow of a monk in the SRF organization, and they changed his name to Kriyananda. And right when Sunburst was starting in '69, he was starting a community up north called Ananda, and which still exists, and it's kind of like our sister up there. We communicate quite a bit with them, and they've come and visited, and we've gone up there and visited. And Kriyananda was a prolific writer. He wrote, I think, 150 books and songs and all kinds of stuff. It was really amazing. But Yogananda asked him early on to stay close to him and record what Yogananda was saying. And so he did. Over the years, he would sit in on talks that Yogananda would have with a small group or a big group or individual, and he would take notes and write down stories that Yogananda told that maybe he didn't share with everybody in his writings. And he decided, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that he wanted to consolidate all these things that he wrote down and put them in a book. And so he went up to his little house, and he had all these papers and notebooks filled with stuff. And so he started laying them out on the floor and trying to organize them in a way that he could put it into a book. And he said his whole floor was covered with different sizes and sheets of paper. And all of a sudden, somebody opens the door, and this gust of wind comes in and just blows everything everywhere. And he had to start all over again. So it was a real labor of love. And he ended up writing this book called Conversations with Yogananda. So I wanted to read a quote from there that Yogananda said. He said, "Don't fight your mind," counseled the master. "Treat it like a donkey. That beast is so stubborn that sometimes it won't budge even when it is beaten repeatedly. If its owner lets it stand still for a while, however, the donkey finally resumes walking again of its own accord. The best thing when your mind rebels is to let it stand for a while. Don't be too hard on it. Let it make a point. After that, it will resume advancing of its own accord without being forced. So these incredible brains that we have inside of our thick skulls is incredible creation by the divine. And science has come a long way in understanding different areas of the brain, but there's still a vast areas of the brain that they don't understand what it even does, what happens in those areas. And sometimes I like to think that, well, maybe that's when, as consciousness evolves on the planet, those areas light up and we become more conscious, more aware, more in tune, just from the natural evolution of consciousness on the planet. And the brain is sending out these electrical impulses all the time, keeping our heart beating, our nerves firing, our senses active, all of our bodily functions. It's all in the background. We're not controlling it in any way. It's just doing it. And it's pretty amazing when you really think about it. I don't know how many of you have laptops, but this has happened to me a lot of times where I'll be running the battery down pretty low, but then it's time for me to leave or go somewhere, so I'll just shut the cover. But there's still some room in the battery, and then I'll come back a few hours later and the computer's dead. Well, why is that? Well, it's because it's running these programs in the background that we're not aware of. And it's the same with the brain. It's running these programs in the background. Missy and I have been driving an electric car for about 7 years, and it was a learning curve, learning how to work with an electric car. And we joke and just say it's really a computer with wheels. But the first thing I realized, because they tell you that you should leave it plugged in, especially if you're going to leave it sit for a day or two. And I didn't quite understand why, and then I realized after having it for a while that the car is running all these systems in the background. It has to keep the batteries at a certain temperature. It can't get too hot or too cold. It keeps the cabin at a certain temperature, so it, again, doesn't get too hot or too cold. And so that's why they tell you to keep it plugged in, because you have to keep the battery charged up. So there's some simple ways that we can slow our thoughts and have some inner peace happening within us. I'm sure we've all traveled along the coast of California, and it's very different how the waves happen in Northern California than the waves in Southern California, for the most part. The waves in Northern California are like continuous. They're just coming in all the time. And then the waves in Southern California, for the most part, they'll come in, there's a pause, and then there'll be another one, and then a pause. And for those of you that have camped or traveled and stayed at places that you could hear the ocean, for me, the wave that comes in and pauses and then another one comes in and pauses is way more peaceful. Because when I've stayed up north and the constant, it becomes like white noise. It doesn't really calm me anyway. So go to the beach. I mean, if you find your mind just going crazy, go to the beach. And just sit there and just kind of close your eyes and just listen to those waves as they come in and feel that peace penetrating yourself. Walking or hiking in nature, especially if you can, there aren't many forests around here, but if you get on some trails where there's some really nice wooded areas, or if you're up north and you get into the redwoods, it's amazing the peace and the stillness that starts to happen within you just walking with Mother Nature. We can control our thoughts by our breath. If we can take deep calming breaths, even when we're driving a car, it slows the mind down and starts letting it, decompress by just controlling our breathing. My first experience with anything spiritual other than the organization of the Lutheran Church where I grew up when I was a kid, I was taking classes in Manhattan, and it was a yoga retreat or yoga center that Swami Satchidananda started. This was back in 1970. And learned a meditation technique, and it was really what kick-started me into searching for a community of people, of like-minded people that I could share my energy with and learn and grow spiritually. Well, he said, calming the mind is yoga, not just standing on your head, which I thought was a pretty cool quote. So it was way more, what he taught was way more than the yoga positions. And the center that he started, I think it's in Virginia, is still active today and doing well. So what scientists have found out when they've been probing these different areas of the brain, and they've studied Tibetan monks and different meditators, and I'm not sure how they do it, if they inject a dye or whatever, but somehow they're able to trace the areas of the brain that get fired up when people meditate. And it all happens in the frontal lobe of the brain. And so when we start meditating, a whole nother area of the brain starts firing up that we're not using very much. Yogananda said if we could stop our thoughts for 3 seconds, we'd find God. And I struggle to even stop it for 1 second, but it's all possible for us to do. So many times over the years when I've been meditating and I've started to have some sort of visual experience, like, we always talk about how when you really start meditating and getting really deep, you might see a tunnel and you might see a star at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes I'll be meditating and the tunnel will start forming and right away my brain goes, there's the tunnel, and then it goes away. Or I'll start to see the star and same thing, it goes away. So it really takes one-pointed concentration. And if you read in Norm's autobiography, his cosmic conscious experience he had when he was a very young man after he had left Yogananda's, he had in that experience one-pointed concentration. He was doing his beads, his 108 string of beads, and all he was concentrating on was those beads and the meditation technique. And he found that it's an amazing experience if you want to read it or reread it, but he found that his breath started to slow and became slower and slower and slower and finally stopped. And his heart, he could feel his heart beating and becoming slower and slower and slower, and then it stopped. And then he exited and had his cosmic conscious experience, and 7 hours later he came back and everything restored itself. So stilling the mind is possible, and there's plenty of people that have done it before us. And one of the really wonderful ways to still the mind is through a meditation technique. And here at Sunburst we teach several different techniques that you can find the one that, and sometimes one works in a different situation and the other one works better in another situation. But we teach a Hong Saw technique, it's called, and it's very effective in slowing thoughts. It's a very simple technique, and it works very well. Yogananda said, when by meditation we withdraw restless thoughts from the lake of the mind, we behold our soul, a beautiful reflection of spirit. So I'd like to talk us through a really basic meditation technique, and you're welcome, if you know Kriya, you can do Kriya and not do this technique, but if you It's real simple, and it helps slow the thoughts, and it involves controlling the breath. So we'll meditate for 15 minutes or so. So you want to make sure that your back is straight, and you want to find the point of consciousness that is referred to as the third eye. And it basically is in from the bridge of the nose, in from the temple, and down from the crown of the head. That's where it's located, and it's the pituitary center. And it sits in this kind of bone throne. And the pituitary center is the master gland of the body. It controls a lot of stuff in the body. So to focus your eyes, you can put your finger here on the bridge of your nose, and then bring it out about 12 inches or 8 inches or so, and have it up a little bit, and stare at the top of it, and then gently lower the eyelids so that you don't see the finger anymore. And if your eyelids flutter too much, you can close them all the way. But that's where you want to be. That's our screen. That's our cosmic screen where we're going to see the cosmic movie. And it appears to be happening out here, but it's really happening within us. So we focus our eyes, we have our back straight, and we need to start controlling our breath through our nostrils. And notice as you breathe, you don't have to force breathe, just let the natural flow of your breath in and out. And notice as you inhale, there's a cooling effect that happens in the nostrils. And as we exhale, it's a warming effect. Let's just sit with that for a few minutes. Now, another good thing to do is to have some sort of a mantra that you say as you're breathing. And it can be, Father or Mother, reveal thyself to me. It can be, I am that I am. It can be whatever you feel in your heart you would like to mentally repeat over and over again as you let the breath flow through the nostrils. And feel that breath entering through the nostrils and igniting under that third eye. Feel that third eye starting to get warm and active with the inhalation. So again, just natural breaths. Say a mantra to keep your brain focused on the technique. And just let your thoughts flow. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to slow them down. Because the technique will slow the thoughts. Well, I hope that technique helped everyone learn how to slow our thoughts. What's very effective is that you'll find that because you're not forcing your breath just naturally becomes slower, and your pauses between breaths get longer, and your thoughts slow way down, and it's very restful and relaxing. Norm used to say that if your mind was just racing and just couldn't control it, couldn't control your thoughts, best thing to do is go out and grab a shovel and start digging a ditch. And it's really true. I mean, if your mind just, you've tried everything and it's just, the thoughts are just firing on like crazy, go for a run, go to a gym, go to the beach, just break the energy somehow through some kind of physical activity, walking, hiking. It really helps. It really helps just break that cycle. And when we meditate and after sitting for a while and we get into that really restful place, it's very important to just enjoy that space and not, so many times, you go, okay, I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes and the dinger goes up and you jump up and walk away. Well, not do that, but just kind of let the space settle and the peace settle within you before you jump up and walk away. Yogananda said, if you eat your dinner and then run, how will you expect to enjoy what you've eaten? Certainly your enjoyment will increase if you rest a little afterward. The same is true for your practice of Kriya Yoga. Don't jump up the moment you've done your Kriyas. Sit still a while. Enjoy the inner peace. That is how intuition is developed. Prolong and deepen as much as possible the peaceful after effects of practicing the techniques. So let's do a closing prayer together. Repeat after me. O Father, Mother Divine, we, your children, gather here today. Uniting our energies. Reaching out to you. We pray that you become very active in our lives. That we might feel your energy in and around us with each breath. We thank you for this life. We love you. Amen.
Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee.